sometimes it is quite normal, because everything goes against it. And you can end your recitation practice by regularly practice a little bit of asking who after having practice just recitating. Ask yourself who is recitating a bit. Be clear on one thing, that's not the highest form of Huatu. The highest form of Huatu, because the Hu Huatu is again like concentration on one point, it's a little bit on one point. The best, the higher form of Huatu is a what Huatu. What is this right now? Or I don't know. Huatu that are more open and takes everything that is happening right now into account. Everything that is happening into it. That's a different, higher form of Huatu. But to begin with, just recitate and ask yourself for a few minutes at the end, just who is recitating, who is listening, with sincerity. So, at first it may be a bit forced, and you may need to return to simply just recitate, and that's good, just try it. It's also a playful game, it's a serious game, but take it lightly. So, about questioning, it isn't a question in the habitual way of the sense, a term of the sense, which is not about answering a question. I don't care about your answers. That's one difference with Zen Rinzai. We don't test through answers. You can actually show your understanding through a poem. That can be done at the end of retreat, and everyone offers a poem. But your practice is very intimate between you and your teacher. And it is very intimate in a way. Life gives you answers. So it is really about asking the question in an existential way. Who the fuck is recitating? Who the heck is listening right now? This is serious. I mean, I'm living, I'm made of all different things here. My acts that I generally do without thinking have an enormous effect on me and how I think and all this. What the heck am I doing here? Seriously. That's the stage to it. And as you will ask yourself again and again and again this existential question, a great doubt will develop beyond any intellectual way of seeing the question. A more profound urge to know the answer will be born. And this is only possible through unified concentration, when it is mastered. And if you continue to develop that great doubt and have a great faith in the practice, in the fact that there is an answer, yourself is the answer, you can answer to this. So a great faith in the practice, in your true nature, that you want to see, to unravel right now. Then just say with one mind, Amitofo. That's the whole path. In the Shurangama, this technique of looking really at the basis, at the foundation, at the root, is called returning the faculty of hearing. In the text, it's called returning the faculty of hearing. That means seeing who and what and how is at the root of hearing itself. What is this awareness which is so open of hearing? What is the source of awareness? What is it? Who is it? And go beyond what and who and all answers. Just awareness. So at the origin, the Shurangama talks about the Vajra Samadhi through the door of Kuan Yin, returning the hearing. And this Vajra Samadhi is purely based on this charm of just hearing, just listening. Sure. But it is a subtle technique, and you need specific teachings, you need a specific teacher, someone who has trained this. And it is quite subtle. And then there are different periods, so Part2 began to be more and more developed and practiced. And it began to be no, anyway, I won't go there. I have no time, and I will do that because I'm going further ahead. If you don't understand what I'm saying here, again, we will see that in details later. But so, something also that is important. So, our practice is to say the words very clearly, fully saying them, fully reciting them, without falling into an hypnotic state. Very, very important. If you do that very sincerely, you may at some point hear some internal noise. You can put your hands, the noise will only get bigger. It comes from inside. That's what I want to say. That's normal. That's the consequence of a just, natural, balanced practice. Don't try to get it, please. But if you get it, know that this internal sound that we sometimes name the celestial drum, or the voice of Kuan Yin, the voice or the sound of our own nature. If you hear it, make it your only object of concentration. If you hear that inner sound, make it your object of concentration. Take it as a blessing. Don't take it as something bad for your practice. And if you don't hear it, not a problem. Just listen fully to the songs you're saying with your mind. So say the words fully and listen to them fully. If you hear an internal sound through the practice, just focus on that internal sound. So now, the last part of the basic manual that the first 9 sections are. So again, 3 first sections, body, speech and mind, on mind, speech and body. Then 3 exoteric forms of meditation. I say then 3 esoteric forms of meditation. The 2 first ones, diamond recitation, silent meditation, recitation. Now is recitation through regulating the breath. Actually, it is another kind of recitation. You know, or you may know that in our traditions, I always insist on the fact that you must, at the beginning of recitation, practice some form of breathing meditation, generally the healing breath, and I give you the advice at the end of meditation, or when you are in a retreat and your body really is into too much tension and stress, to practice the egg of flight meditation. You know, it is very linked to that. The function of that egg of light meditation is different than the rest of the purely chant, purely knowing mind, if you want, types of meditation. The function of this type of meditation really is to harmonize body, breath and mind in another way, and to get tensions of the body. So have in mind that this type of meditation, the text in English says regulating the breath, has to do with that. So I will read the text. When the mind is at peace and the breath is regular, you should first visualize yourself seated in a circular zone of light. Of course, we think about, as I said earlier, Amitabha practice is at the crossroad, really, it's at the core of Mahayana. It exists, and it's very important in Chan Pure Land, or Chan Pure Land as it is in China, and it is also at the core of Vajrayana. And that's a totally Vajrayana practice. This is the root of Vajrayana, and remember that the first Pure Land practices were kind of Vajrayana practices. What there were is total practices, body, mind and speech were totally occupied, if you want, through the meditation. And then you could visualize a Pure Land and all this. And a very simple form of that is that actually in this meditation you sit on a circular zone of light. A moon disk. That's what the moon disk is. And if you've practiced an esoteric sadhana, you know it. So then, as your breath going in, as you then visualize the breath, going in and out of your nose as you silently recite the Buddha's name once with each breath. You can see again the subtle nature of this practice. It's about breath. It's about something subtle, internal. Okay. You should regulate breath so that it is neither slow nor hurried. The mind and the breath reinforcing each other. Again, this idea of balance between the two. Following each other in and out, whether walking or standing, reclining or sitting, proceed in this manner without interruption. So, it's a kind of esoteric practice. I can give you a tip right now. When you do that type of practice, there are lots of ways to visualize yourself. And actually the egg of light meditation, it's also a variant. The same processes are into place, if you want. You can visualize a circle of light, sun, moon, circle of light. That's what is at the center of this type of practice. Of course, you are in a circular zone, which is both a Vajra wall and a disc. People who know a bit about Vajrayana know what I'm talking about. For others, don't preoccupate yourself with what I'm saying here. But you can visualize it in your heart. Actually visualizing a round ball of white light is existing in Chan, actually. The fifth patriarch, Hongren, talks about it. It is also one of the main visualization techniques of the Pure Land. And it is at the very core. I think it was Vajra Bodhi, one of really the first very important Vajrayana masters in China, who talked about the importance of seeing a disc of moon of white light in your heart, and how it is really the fundamental Vajrayana practice. So, don't force your breath. That is not about forcing it. It will get also naturally profound through practice. So, again I will read later another commentaries. I will follow first from the text. If you always secretly recite in the above manner, and as I said, you could visualize also like the egg of light meditation. In some variants of this technique, you visualize a Buddha up on your head. And actually, when you breathe in, you receive the light of the Buddha. And when you breathe out, you breathe all negativity from below. So, breathing in, you receive everything and you're full of light, and you reject all negativity, and you give light below to all others, to all the rest of the world below you. Okay, and the Buddha is up. That's really the same fundamental technique that is there than with the egg of light meditation. So, if you always secretly recite in the above manner, focusing the mind over a long period of time, there will no longer be this distinction between breath and recitation. That's the whole point of the practice, actually. Especially in your daily life, just practice, and that the practice becomes natural. Each breath is practice. As I said earlier, I advise you to begin your formal practice with walking meditation, and each step is Buddha recitation, each step is the practice. That's the same spirit here. Each breath is the practice. So, your body and mind merging with empty space. That's the quality of working with breath, with space, at open. Okay? And it is also a way to practice with this body. I insist on it because I know that we use the door of mind in Ninji, but we have a body also. And we also have received, especially in our tradition, all techniques. In Chan there is really no different. Linji, Sautung, these are lineage things in documents, but the toolbox we have has Mo Chao Chan, just sitting Chan in there, and has this technique of, if you want, door of body. We know it, and why I'm talking about this is because breath and space and working on the relation, the sensation of body, the sensation of space, this is very linked to the Tsao-Tung practice of just sitting. I won't go into it later, we will go into it, but in quite a long time probably. We'll get lots of other texts and things to see first. So, when recitation, that's the very important part. When recitation is perfected, the mind-eye will open up and samadhi is suddenly realized. This is the state of mind-only Pure Land. So, with silent recitation we talked about everything as mind-only. Everything is just this, everything is mind. Experiencing oneness. It is the same as in the metaphor of the mountain, to be up the mountain, saying we are all one. Okay, here is a bit different. Mind only Pure Land. The mind is already pure. All this is pure. Dwelling into purity through the body, an incarnate, manifested form of purity of our mind. So, that's it for the original text. Now we'll read now a small commentary. This technique, it's a wonderful true crossroad between the essence of Vajrayana, the internal techniques and practice of Pure Land, and Chan. They remind us that the essence of the esoteric teaching transmitted by Padmasambhava in Tibet, or by Vajrabodhi in China, are of a luminous simplicity, to simply keep the Buddha, the light of the Buddha, at heart. That's also one of the translations, actually, of mindfulness of the Buddha, keeping the Buddha at heart. And as we are doing it mainly with the Buddha of light, Amitabha, simply keeping the Buddha of light at heart. So, keeping the light of the Buddha at heart and vehiculate the breath of light to realize the pure land of our own mind, and hypothetically to know the pure land as supreme bliss here and now. The execution, the practice of this technique is very simple, but it is important to master well the technique and to practice it in a place that is calm, before trying to practice this type of recitation with the breath, which is subtle in day-to-day life. First, make sure it's a practice you know and and you practice properly. We must also note that this technique of the breath of light is a technique on the side to the other types of technique we've seen previously. It is one more technique in the toolbox of each practitioner. And it can be a supplementary technique to help the chi, for example, to circulate, or be the main technique of someone. In our tradition, it is rarely the main technique. Our main is it technique? I'm translating again. No, let's note that practitioners may choose to recite internally a part of the name with each inspiration, in-breath and out-breath. We could do, what I mean by that is that at each in-breath you could make Ami Tofo, and at each out-breath letting go Ami Tofo, or doing Ha Mi To Fo. You can also separate them, no problem. The point is to fully concentrate on your recitation and in listening the name. When this luminous breathing is established in the central channel, the practitioner visualizes that the light begins to come to the exterior of his body. When we begin to be full of light, and at the end of this meditation we visualize that the light also goes in the external part of the body, and it begins to go down on our shoulders, our chest and our legs, exactly like the egg light meditation, exactly. This technique, like the egg of light meditation, when it is mastered, can easily be used in the middle of any meditation sitting, when the practitioner feels that his body, his mind is too tensed. Exactly, again, like the egg of light meditation. Note also that after a meditation session, this technique can be applied, again, just like the egg of light meditation. So, like we begin to see, these different techniques we've seen, from recitating with how is it said in English? Amala or Nenzu. With a rosary. To now recitating to breath or breath of light, you can also call it. So they don't differ in their fundamentals, and they must be practiced following each one needs. It is also essential to be helped, to be to have a teacher, someone who has an eye on the practice, just an external eye. Mingzhen used to say something I like a lot. Even if your teacher is the stupidest monk, he is still an external eye. And that's very true. Even the stupidest mind can see things from me I can't see, because I'm in there. So anyway, it's important to be helped, even from far, as we do now. Someone, a teacher that you know, who knows where you're going to, and each tradition has its own subtleties regarding the different practices and how you must maybe first practice one or then the other. Okay, ask your teacher. Let us remember that the most crucial, the most important thing is to develop a unified attention based on perfect, pure, sincere recitation and perfect, pure, sincere hearing. Inner recitation, inner hearing. That's the most subtle part. And the two of them form this golden circle I've talked about. And there is not a single place, not a single space for thoughts. That will build itself naturally. Don't try to have no thoughts, to blah blah blah. No, that's a natural consequence of the practice. That's really that golden dream. When this is realized, whatever the technique, the word isn't seen or lived by the eye of the ego, but by the eye of our true nature. And we open ourselves naturally to that open space, and open to our profound nature. This is profound samadhi. This is Chan, Zen. Mind only realizes itself here and now. That can be done through any gate, any practice, any method. Sincerity, existential seeing. But the specificity of Chan, of Zen, is to not stop yourself at this experience of seeing the absolute, if you want, of our universal nature, but to want to act in the word from that seeing, from that understanding, so not only seeing your nature, acting from it. Ming Zen wrote a wonderful book that is called The Way of Action, Karma Yoga she called it, The Way of Action, which is really about that. Zen is action, she used to say. Zen is action. And of course at first we may act with our ego. We want to act. We had a beautiful experience, let's say, and we want to manifest our nature. We want to manifest the spirit, the mind as we've seen it, deliberately. That's manifestation with traces of ourselves. When we do that naturally, it's called traceless manifestation. There isn't even a single trace of yourself, of your ego left in the process. So, what about now? The first part of the text is finished. So now what you have to do is to practice. Practice them. Try it. And let's see. Part 2 is practical things, really. That questions that may come from practicing. While practicing you may ask yourself, okay, where could I do this? Oh, would it be better to do this and that? And practical answers will be given. After these practical answers will be given in part 2, part 3 is actually coming back on very subtle things with only beginning to talk about, and in a way I will only repeat myself. But we will come back with subtle, not stages as I said wrongly, but subtle aspects of that simple practice of just saying the words, or just fully listening to them. So the essence of the way of recitation, the sacred name of the Buddhas, has now been exposed. And this silly priest could continue and go on and on and on. Now, practice, practice, practice. God! Amin Tofo.